Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another series of our Survivor Leadership webinar. My name is Roxy Farrell, and I'm the Operations Manager and Survivor Leadership Program Lead of the Human Trafficking Legal Center, and will also serve as the moderator for this webinar. We welcome you all to another installment of our Survivor Leadership Series. Before we begin, I would like to introduce a member of Survivor Alliance and our co-sponsors for this event, Nancy Isuova.
Thank you, Rossi. Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us from. My name is Nancy, and I am the membership coordinator for Survivor Alliance. I'm just going to give a very brief info about Survivor Alliance, and I will drop the link as well to our website. If you have any question, you can find all you need there. Survivor Alliance is an international US-based not-for-profit created by and for survivors of human trafficking and modern slavery. Survivors maintain a majority on our board and staff, and membership is only open to people who self-identify as a survivor. So at Survivor Alliance, we do so many things. I would just mention a few. So we do meaningful inclusion, opening a chapter, engagement in anti-slavery movement, well-being as well. We do that through peer mentoring, relationship, increasing trauma and literacy. The other one, economic empowerment. We do this by consulting opportunity, professional development, and employment pathway for our members. I will put the link down, and for those who are interested to know more about Survivor Alliance, and you can give me a call, and I will put my email as well if for those who want to know more about Survivor Alliance. Thank you so much for having me today, Roxy.
Thank you so much, Nancy. Before we begin our webinar today, I would like to give a few pointers, housekeeping pointers about questions and answers. We will hold questions for the end of the presentation. So during the presentation, feel free to type any questions in the Q&A box located at the bottom of your control panel on the right. And if you would like, you can also upvote questions as well to help us get a better sense of how in which types of questions you all would like the presenters to answer. So without further ado, today we are joined by Tannia, Ventura, and M. Jackson. Welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for welcoming us, Nancy and Roxy. My name is Tannia Ventura. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm the Director of Service Provider Engagement and Education at Freefrom. I am a survivor myself, and I came to this work because I love working with, first of all, survivor entrepreneurs and folks who are really interested in starting businesses or creating income in creative ways. But landed on this type of work of supporting survivors with their healing journey, specifically in relationship to their money, from doing that work. So I'm very much passionate about supporting folks understand their relationship to money and begin the healing journey. I'm going to hand it over to M to introduce themselves.
Hi, everyone. Very happy to be here. My name is M. Jackson. My pronouns are they, them, theirs, and I'm the Director of Peer Engagement and Support at Freefrom. I also am a survivor. I have been involved in this particular field of work for a little over 2 years and really didn't see myself as a survivor until I began to do the work. I've always been involved in social justice, and this was a very good segue into what I'm passionate about. So I'm very excited today to be here with you all. Roxy, thank you so much for having us, and interested to hear what you all have to share as well.
Thank you. So this webinar will be about exploring our relationship to money and beginning the healing journey. But before we get started, I want to start with a grounding. So a grounding is just to get us in the room, get us in the space, get us in the mindset. You can participate in whatever way you want. You can not participate. You can totally do whatever feels right. but take a few deep breaths. So we're going to take one together. You can close your eyes if you want to, if you're comfortable with it. You can sit comfortably or choose a body position that feels good to you. So if sitting doesn't feel good, that's okay. You can find something else. So take more deep breaths. As you're doing that, check in with yourself. How are you feeling it? Where in your body are you feeling those feelings? I'm excited, so I'm feeling it in my heart. So ask yourself, what am I feeling? Where am I feeling it? And then ask yourself, what am I bringing with me to this session? And what do I want to leave behind? Maybe you want to leave behind the stress of your day. Maybe you read an article that has you feeling some type of way and you want to leave that behind. Come back to it later. So think through your last thoughts. Really acknowledge any feelings and where you felt them that you felt. And then come back. Open your eyes, look at your screen, move around. Sometimes it helps to, do a little bit of the neck movement, some stretching. If you're sitting down, really focusing on how the floor feels on your feet. So really ground yourself and be present with us today. I do want to note to you all that we are going to be talking about money, and money brings up a lot of different feelings, memories, emotions for people. I want to encourage you to really sit with whatever comes up. If you don't have the capacity to sit with it right now or to feel it right now, make note of it, come back to it later. If you're feeling triggered at any point or you feel challenged at any point, please feel free to do whatever you need to ground yourself back into the room. Or if you need to go and you don't want to be part of this session anymore, no hard feelings at all. You are more than welcome to just exit out. And we are completely understanding that just not everybody is ready to explore their relationship to money just yet. And we hope that you maybe can see this recording later or come back to it whenever you're ready. All right, so let's get started. So today we're going to be first introducing Freefrom very briefly in the work that we do. We're going to talk about why is money in our relationship to money important. We're going to do some money story exercises. So this is going to require some reflection and some engagement in the chat if you are comfortable with it. So just wanted to flag that for y'all. And then we're going to end the session with healing and rebuilding our relationship to money. So giving you some tools and resources and guidance about how you can start healing and rebuilding that relationship if you've found some challenges as you were exploring your money story. And then we'll debrief and jump into Q&A. So a little bit about Freefrom. We envision a world where survivors have sustaining income, savings, and credit with which to build wealth and the resources to support individual, intergenerational, and community healing. So we take a very holistic approach and we use different programs, different means to do this. We use data, research, technology, peer-to-peer networks, which is what M does, training programs for shelters and agencies. So that's me, policy advocacy, social enterprise models, and cross-sector solutions. So that's all a lot of words to pretty much say that we are, our mission and our goal is to really support survivors, create meaningful wealth. So whatever that means for you, and getting the wealth that you need to feel safe. So why is money in our relationship to money important? So some of y'all might be like, I have no clue why we're talking about this. And hopefully this really helps. And I'm so sorry about that noise if y'all heard it. I thought I had turned off my notifications, but it looks like I didn't do it very well. But before we get started, I want you to think about something you want for yourself in the future. It could be in a week, it could be in a month, It could be in a year, 5 years, whatever future feels safe for you to think about right now. Really get happy about that thing that you want. Maybe it's a new outfit, maybe it's some new shoes, maybe it's a new home, whatever it is, let yourself get excited about it. And then think about, how is money related to this stream? And notice any feelings that come up as soon as I mentioned money, or as soon as you start to think about money in association with your dreams. Feel free to answer this in the chat if you're comfy. If you're not comfortable, totally okay. You can write it down in a notebook for yourself or in your phone, or just keep it in your head. But just, keep that in mind at whatever it is that you want in the near future or future far away as we're going through this session. So why money? Surviving violence and trafficking is expensive. I think we all know that. Healing is expensive. So investing in our healing is expensive. So whatever healing means to you, whether it's doctors, whether it's therapists, whether it's books and journals and art supplies, healing is expensive. And then staying safe is expensive, right? So finding the home that feels safe to us can be expensive. Finding the community that feels safe to us can be expensive. Going to court to make sure that the person who harmed you never sees you again can get expensive. So surviving violence and trafficking is expensive, and therefore we believe that economic justice is healing justice. You can't have one without the other. So I wanted to briefly talk about what is economic abuse. Hopefully some of y'all have heard of this term before, but if not, then just wanted to briefly kind of mention what it is, because it might come up throughout our conversation. Economic abuse can take many forms, including preventing the survivor from obtaining or maintaining employment, taking a survivor's paycheck and putting the survivor on allowance. It could also look like heavily monitoring spending. It can look like taking out credit cards in a survivor's name and saddling the survivor with debt, or even coercing survivors into taking out credit cards. So telling them that they have to take out a credit card, or forcing them to take out a credit card in their name. It could also be damaging to the survivor's credit, because the survivor might not have control about what is being put on those credit cards or when they're being paid off. So that can have some long-term credit impact. But ultimately, economic abuse is about control. It's another control tactic. It can happen person to person. It can happen from an employer to an employee, or a government entity to a constituent. So yes, governments can also participate in economic abuse. So we did a research study recently, and we found that survivors reported that on average each month, $1,280 is stolen. And then each year, about $16,000 is incurred in coerced or fraudulent debt. So that's somebody who is taking out debt that is not the survivor's, but under the survivor's name, like using a credit card without their consent, or forcing them to use a credit card without them wanting to. About $23,000 is lost in income. So that's just income that survivors are earning but not seeing. And about almost 18,000 in property damage. So damage to a car, damage to a phone, a laptop, a home, anything that the survivor considers their property. This is how much is being caused in damage. So that's quite a lot. And then the CDC found that on average, a female survivor incurs, just from like medical bills and legal fees, about $104,000 in debt. So all of this to say is, if you are feeling like you are still paying for being a survivor, this is why. And it is not fair, and we should not have to pay for all these things, because we were the person who was harmed, but unfortunately our society has not caught up with that yet. So oftentimes we are left with a lot of this debt and not a lot of resources to pay it off. So it is completely okay to feel frustrated about money and to have feelings about money when you're seeing these numbers. On top of all that, we know that folks who are Black, Indigenous, and people of color, as well as folks who are LGBTQIA+, experience greater obstacles to financial security. So these are pretty well-known numbers, but just quickly gonna repeat them. So for every dollar a white man earns, Black women earn only 62 cents, Native American women earn only 57 cents, Asian women earn only 90 cents, and Latinx women earn 54 cents. That's a big disparity. And then for every $1 white men own, Black and Latinx women only own pennies, and Native American women only less than 1/10 of the median wealth of all Americans. So we're already experiencing a lot of debt and income loss from just being a survivor. On top of it, if you're Black, Indigenous, a person of color, or LGBTQIA, you're experiencing even more because as a society, we don't have equitable income for folks who are BIPOC or LGBTQIA. And I just wanted to kind of give you some examples of what that looks like in real time. So for example, folks who are, and I don't have to tell you this example, this probably will feel very familiar, but folks who are survivors of trafficking, for example, trafficking is very much connected to money. Some human trafficking survivors walk away with a lot of financial trauma due to the nature of the forced labor that they were subjected to. So forced labor often equates to stolen wages, stolen or lost identification documents, isolation, unattended medical needs, criminalization, and so much more. A lot of things that are costing money, a lot of economic abuses, as we described it earlier. So re-entering a traditional workforce can be difficult to access and often can feel really triggering or unsafe. So if you were being forced into labor, entering a workforce here in the US sometimes can still feel like a power imbalance, right? It can still feel like you're kind of reliving some of those power imbalances when you're entering traditional workforce. That's one example. The next example is for survivors who are undocumented. So folks who are undocumented or immigrants to the US may have little knowledge on how to participate in our economy. Some folks may be fleeing war or corrupt governments where financial institutions became a place of power and abuse. And then once in the US, accessing fair and safe employment can be challenging when you're undocumented. So you're often being subjugated to really horrible working conditions, sometimes subjected to labor, being forced into labor, and just not getting paid fair wages. Like they're getting paid way below government wages. So many have to navigate misconceptions about financial institutions and really have to navigate a lot of misinformation about what they can and cannot do, what rights they have, what rights they don't have. And it makes them more vulnerable to financial abuse. So take a few moments to reflect on these examples of financial harm and inequality. We will explore our money story next, but I just wanted to give you a few moments because some of that stuff was a little hard to think about. It's okay if you're feeling angry. It's okay if your memories are coming up. That is completely okay. It's okay to feel disassociated from it, right? It's okay to not feel anything. So whatever you're feeling, it's valid right now, and we're gonna explore our money story next. And I'm gonna hand it over to Ed.
Thanks so much, Tanya. All right, so thinking about our money story, we all have a money story. You can think of it as your blueprint to your thoughts, feelings, beliefs, attitudes towards money. And it's something that has been in development since we were very young and since we started to really think about the world or, be exposed to it. And the folks that really had heavy influence on our early development of our money story were our parents or really any caregivers that were in our lives. So what we're going to do is we're going to dive into our own money stories and think about if we want to keep some of those things that we learned of in this blueprint, or think about things that we want to change or things that we want to reinvent. So we'll start by looking at fear that can come up even when we're just discussing the topic of money. Next slide, please. So why do we fear or avoid financial conversations? It can feel very, very personal or scary. And it goes into the next bullet point, which talks about cultural beliefs around money. So if you have learned growing up that money is something that you don't discuss with outsiders, with strangers, maybe not even with friends or even with family, maybe it's something that you just keep to yourself. So you want to avoid those particular conversations because you've been taught that it's a very private matter. And so it can feel a little frightening, or perhaps very frightening when you're thinking about discussing your finances with other folks or even just with yourself. We may also not feel very confident about our own money abilities. And I'm sure most of us here know that when we're feeling shame about anything, we don't want to discuss it. You don't necessarily want to talk about something that you don't have a ton of knowledge about, including money. So what do we do when that shame might come up? We avoid those conversations and we say, okay, we'll put it off, or perhaps we just don't talk about it at all. And then, as Tannia was discussing, our own financial traumas come up. So we perhaps don't want to be triggered by talking about something that we experience, or talking about something with someone that can trigger feelings that we're not comfortable with processing on our own, let alone with someone else that perhaps doesn't have as much knowledge of what that experience meant to us in relation to money. Next slide, please. So if we're not talking about money, if we have that fear and that shame when discussing money and finances, what exactly are we missing? So we're missing economic abuse that can continue to go unnoticed, and it can even get worse. I know for myself, I didn't really think about what economic abuse was until I began working at Freefrom. I didn't really have a name for it. I knew I had experienced it, but it wasn't something that I discussed or I heard other folks discussing. So if we don't even know how to call out to it and we're experiencing it, then it can be something that we don't really associate with another form of harm that we've experienced. And it can go ahead and get worse. That can be something that a harm doer can use to their advantage. And then it also allows us to miss out on opportunities for economic growth. So if we're not discussing money, if we're not talking about these things, then how can we really think through where we want to be financially? How can we really think through what do we need to do? Who do we need to have involved in our support system to really be able to achieve financial freedom, to really be able to achieve financial security? So that can mean that we're missing out on those different opportunities because these conversations are being avoided. And then there's also inequalities around money that go unnoticed and unchecked. That can happen in different areas of our lives. It can also happen in the workforce. So I know, for example, for myself, I had a coworker that was on staff in the same position that I was in, and they were bilingual. They had to take a test to receive that position. And we found out through conversation that I was making more than they were. And so that wasn't something that should have been happening. And so what happened, because we were both comfortable with having that financial conversation, is we were able to have that individual bring that up to the leadership and be able to get an equity increase in their salary. And so again, that would not have happened if I didn't have comfort with talking about money to that coworker, and also that coworker being able to be comfortable with receiving that information and taking that to be able to make sure they were able to have that equity increase. And so that's just, a brief example, but it's different things that can take place when we're not in the comfort area of being able to discuss it. And then we're missing out on healing financial trauma. Again, we're not discussing it. So how can you even get to a place to not necessarily move on from it, but be able to move forward from it, and to figure out, okay, this is what I experienced. What do I need? What type of support do I need to be able to heal from that? Going back to the opportunities for economic growth, what perhaps it's something that happened with your credit. What do you need, once you've called attention to it, what do you need to figure out what you can do to remove some of those negative marks that are on your credit report, or to even know what to search for, or how to go and think through building income and different things like that. So when we're able to talk about these things and we're able to get on that journey towards healing, that journey towards financial freedom, and what exactly that means for us. And thinking through all of this, that doesn't mean that you have to be in a certain place that someone else is. It depends on yourself. It depends on what you're ready for and what you're comfortable with. But just really thinking about being prepared to discuss those certain things. Okay, next slide, please. So what I invite you all to do is to use the chat box and to think through the next questions that I have for you. So if you're comfortable with accepting that invitation, I would like to ask you, what is your earliest memory of money? So the first thing that comes to mind for you when you think about money in general. So I see allowance, someone shared, control, parents fighting over it, how stressful it made a parent, autonomous, struggling, power to dominate others. Someone said freedom, thinking through buying something, thinking about your mental health, poverty. Okay. Thank you all for sharing that. And feel free to continue to share as I go through the other questions. Next slide, please. So now what I would like you to do is think about a money-related memory about your teen or young adult years. So not just what was the first memory that popped up, but when you're thinking specifically about you as a teenager or you as a young adult, what is a money-related memory that comes up for you? Greed, okay. Taxes and credit. Escape, earning from the first job. Someone was able to hide cash. Freedom and happiness, excellent. Taxes, okay. Next slide, please. So we've thought about our first memory, we've thought about our teen and adulthood, early adulthood. So what would you say is your most recent memory of money? So the last thought that you had when you were thinking about money, what was that? Anxiety, okay, theft. Taxes and credit came up again, abuse, sad. Learning about IRA, exploitation, anxiety, okay, all right. Credit. Next slide, please. So I want you now to reflect on the memories that you've had and try to fill in what happened in between. Were there any changes to your relationship to money? Any harm that you experienced? And any personal successes related to money? So when you're thinking about, your money story in general, from you being very young to a teen, a young adult to now, what happened throughout those different times in relation to money and your relationship to it? And of course, many of us can think about the harm that we've experienced, but are there also any successes? So someone said paying off debt. I'm sure that felt very good. Congratulations on that. Someone else bought a house. The value of money. Feeling healthy and alive. Okay, being able to stay home. Okay, understanding it as a tool. It sounds like someone was able to pay for something without having as much perhaps anxiety about it. A scholarship. Okay. And I'm noticing, when we're able to look at the full picture, what I'm noticing in the responses is that folks are looking at more successes. And it's not to say that those, harmful experiences didn't happen, but to be able to look to see, okay, what was it that I can look at and I can find joy in, when it comes to money, because money doesn't have to be this thing that is just so negative and connected to, the harm that we endured. Okay, next slide, please. So what are some messages that you receive throughout your money story about money? And this can be all throughout, since you were young, teenager, young adult, even now. Like, what were some messages that you received? Scarcity. Ooh, root of all evil and death. Without money, they're lost. Money was evil. Don't be a slave to money. So as we're thinking about our money story and thinking about earlier what I said about what do you want to keep from what you learned when you were younger? What do you want to change? What do you want to reinvent? And it sounds like what folks were experiencing, what they were being taught about money is very perhaps different than what they're currently thinking when they're thinking about, the successes that they've had, and perhaps this different messaging that you are telling yourself now, regardless of what you were taught, regardless of what you were made to believe, growing up. What are you telling yourself now? What keeps you going so you don't have to see it as this evil thing, where you can see it actually working for you in your healing? Okay, next slide, please. So then I want to ask, what are sore spots in your money story? What are the joyful spots in your money story? What are the growth spots in your money story? And you don't have to answer all three. You don't even have to answer any of them in the chat. You can just think about it. But this helps us to really create our own blueprint, around money and our money story. And we're thinking about what are some things that were, a little bit difficult for us to get through, to think through. What were the areas where it was very joyful, when you're thinking about your money story? And this can be currently, this can be in the past. And what areas of growth do you have with your money story? Okay, next slide. And then I want you to think about, what does financial freedom look like to you? Have you ever felt financially free? And if you have, what did that feel like? So someone said that they have control of their money, being able to pay bills, to budget. And when we think about financial freedom, just thinking that that means something very different for each of us. It is not a cookie cutter definition of what it means to be financially free. Financial freedom to you might mean I can pay all my bills and have a little bit extra. That could mean that you're financially free. Or it could mean that, I think someone mentioned being able to buy tires, being able to go in and buy tires and not say, okay, that means I can't pay this, or I can't take care of this, or perhaps I can buy a gift, or I can go and take myself to get my hair done, or, something like that. So just keeping in mind that that can change throughout our lives, but also it's very much in relationship to our own thoughts and feelings. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so I want to thank you all for participating in that. This is something that I encourage you to continue to do, think through your own money story. And we're gonna go ahead and take a 2-minute break. just because I know it's a lot of information and a lot of thinking that we've been doing. So we will come back in 2 minutes and Tannia will bring us back.
All right, let's make our way back. I hope that 2-minute break was refreshing. If you need longer, no hard feelings, take longer. Maybe just play the webinar in the background. This next part won't be super engaging, but still important, so stick around. But let's get started. So now we're gonna move into thinking about how can we start healing and rebuilding our relationship to money? So what is financial autonomy? Financial autonomy is the ability to make your own financial decisions. It's the ability to access your own money. It's also confidence when it comes to money. Being able to financially recuperate when something happens. So for example, if you have an emergency of sorts, being able to come back from that. It's also feeling like your money is secure in a way that feels right to you. So again, financial security, just like financial freedom, can mean many different things to different people. But most importantly, it's trusting yourself when it comes to money and being trusted with your money. So you trusting yourself, but also feeling like others trust you. Now I want you to think about what else comes to mind. So financial autonomy is similar to financial freedom, but it's more about like your own practice. So your own financial practice, your own financial ability to make decisions, to have access, to feel secure, to feel confident, all of that. But anything else that comes up to you, I encourage you to think through or write in the chat. So we're going to be talking about what are tools, medicines, and healing practices you are using or have used to heal money traumas. So if you have explored this topic before, please, please, please share away in the chat about what you've done to kind of support yourself in that healing, because we are all experts in our own healing and in our own experiences. So please feel free to talk to each other, to give each other support and advice in the chat as we're talking about this. So I wanted to first talk about some common practices and medicines, as we call it, to healing money. So money is 100% a tool and can also feel like a medicine. When, you know, like if you think of medicine, it's something that you take when you're sick. So if you are feeling hurt or challenged by a money trauma, money can 100% be a medicine, be a tool, right? Somebody said in the chat earlier that realizing money is just a tool was really important to them, and I love that. So money is not good or bad. It does not determine who we are either. Money is just a tool that gives some folks access to healing. But money is also a tool that has been taken from us, that has been, been convoluted in different ways, and that unfortunately our society places a lot of different meanings on. But just, if you just think about money as it just is. It's not bad, it's not good, it doesn't mean anything. It just gives you access to different things. So sometimes accessing income, accessing grants, accessing donations or gifts, financial aid, reparations. So reparations is can be different things. It can be through the legal system. It can just be, from your community. It can come in many different ways. It can be child support. It can be alimony. It can be compensation for the harm that you were subjected to. It can take many different forms, but accessing that like physical money can give you access to other things, right? Other things that you need, like a safe apartment, a car, a phone to talk to family and friends. It can help you get back your passport or whatever it is that you need, right, to get to safety. And I really want to encourage us all to remove shame in wanting or accessing money. So sometimes people tell us, like, do not take money from that person because, they harmed you, whatever. But if you really need that money, go for it. Like, there's no shame in wanting or accessing that money that you need to get to safety. And there's no shame in asking for these either. So asking friends and family, asking your community. And I think we really got more comfortable with this because of the pandemic, and we saw so many people struggling, where we were able to, remove some of the shame about wanting money, but also accessing it. So I really want to encourage you all to think about, if you're feeling shame about, why do I feel shame when I need money to access healing or to access safety? Or why, am I maybe accidentally shaming others who need this or want this? Really think about, where is that coming from, and how can I really begin to heal so that I can have a better relationship with money where it really feels like a tool and not something that is still controlling me or others. A resource I wanted to drop in is Freefrom's Compensation Compass. So this is a survey that allows you to answer different questions about the harm that you were subjected to. And it will give you options about it will give you the legal options that are available to you when it comes to getting compensation. So it might tell you, for your case, it might make sense to take it to small claims court. Or for your case, it might make sense to sue your harm doer or the person who trafficked you. In your case, it might make sense to apply for victims of crime funding, and this is how you apply for it, so on and so forth. So that's a great tool to know what options are out there for you, and it's like a self-guided tool for you to access. The nexus or safety fund. So the best way to know about our safety fund is to stay connected on our social media, to sign up for our newsletter. But the safety fund is $250 grants, no strings attached. All you have to do is identify as a survivor. And we give those out throughout the year in rounds. They go very quickly. So that's what I'm saying. The best way to know when we have them is to stay connected to our social media or our newsletter in some way. And those are just $250 that we will give to you for you to use in whatever way you want. So we don't require any receipts, any proof, nothing. We just take your word for it and trust that you're going to use it in whatever way you need to. Oh no, I think my laptop froze, y'all. Let's see what's happening. There we go. The next is counseling, coaching, and therapy. So sometimes having an expert who can help you talk through your money story, financial traumas, or healing goals can give you a sense of support, accountability, and relief. So you can practice your ability to make the right choice for yourself. And the first thing when looking for counseling, coaching, or therapy, or anything sort of like that, is that empower yourself to not feel like you have to settle for the first person your insurance refers you to or that someone refers you to. So this is a great way to practice making the choice that feels right for you. So if somebody refers to you does not feel right for whatever reason, you can go somewhere else. You can keep searching. You can Find something that feels better, or maybe, you know, you let go of this idea of a counselor, a coach, or a therapist and look somewhere else, but really trust your intuition and trust yourself when you're trying to find a provider. If Western or global North medicine is not for you, explore cultural specific mind, emotional, and psyche healers. So for example, for some people, maybe they want to go to a curandero or a shaman, or maybe they want to go to a Reiki practitioner or a Chinese medicine and acupuncture practitioner. That is completely okay. And those are tools that are available to y'all if, you know, Western medicine or the global North does not feel accessible or right for you. And always remember that you are hiring whoever it is that you're hiring. So you can interview them. You know, you can ask, can you tell me a little bit about the experience you have with trafficking survivors? Or can you tell me a little bit about the experience you have working with LGBTQ+? And really pay attention to their answers and see if you want to hire them as a person to support you. But also really thinking about, you know, there's also a lot of great self-help books. There's a lot of great like guided journals, guided meditations that are available online that can act as a counselor, a coach, or a therapist that is in a more accessible way, and maybe even cheaper if some of these options don't feel accessible to you right now. So then there's mindfulness and self-practices. So what I was just mentioning. So bringing your relationship to money and your feelings around money can help you become more connected to your healing process. So things that people sometimes do as a self-practice is things like meditation or prayer, journaling, drawing, painting, whatever it is that you're feeling or whatever it is that needs to come out, just drawing it out, painting it out can be helpful. Creating affirmations like, I am capable of making money. I trust my ability to make financial decisions, and making a little practice or a little ritual around these affirmations. So maybe it's the first thing that you think of in the morning when you wake up, or maybe that's what you repeat to yourself as you're drinking your coffee or your tea in the morning. Or maybe you write little notes to yourself all over your apartment or your home or your car or whatever it is that you have access to. So thinking about what affirmations can help me start my days and really encourage me throughout the days. And then there's creating tangible goals. So remember that question about what do you want in the future, right? So is it maybe a new pair of shoes? Is it a new house or whatever it may be? Make little goals. So tangible goals. It's good to have the big ones, but also make little ones, like save $5 this month, or pay $10 more above the minimum payment on this credit card, on my, you know, my whatever Chase or my Macy's credit card or whatever it is that you might have. And then spend money on yourself this week, right? That can be a really simple goal. And I wanna encourage that you make tangible, simple goals, because you'll get to those faster, and the satisfaction of reaching a goal can give you enough energy and enough power and stamina to keep going, to get to that bigger goal, right? So if your goal is to get a new apartment and save for a down payment, maybe start with $5 a month. And then maybe like in 2 months, you're gonna up that to $10 a month, and so on and so forth, so that you feel like you're making progress and that you're encouraging yourself. So picking the best avenue for healing for yourself is different for everybody, right? So everybody's healing is going to be different. Everybody's needs are going to be different. So here are some questions to think about as you're deciding, you know, what avenue of healing is best for me. So what do you envision in this healing journey to be like? Sorry, what do you envision this healing journey to be like? Is someone with you? Do you prefer to be on your own? If someone is with you, who are they? Are they a friend? Are they a professional? Are they a priest? Are they a shaman? Are they a Reiki practitioner? You know, who are they? What have you tried? So think about, you know, like in the past when you're trying to change something or you're trying to heal something, what have you tried? What worked and what didn't? And why? Why did that work for you? Or why did that not work for you? What is your learning style? So this is super important, right? So when you were back in school, or when you know, are learning something new, what kind of learning best fits you? Are you a visual learner? Are you someone who has to hear things, right? Are you an auditory learner? Are you more an interactive learner? Like you need to get like in it and, you know, use your hands, use your body to really understand something. And what kind of spaces do you feel like you can be the most honest and authentic? Super important, right? Because if we can't be honest and authentic with this process, then we're just gonna keep getting some roadblocks, right? So you really got to think about, you know, who do I feel most comfortable around? What does that space look like? Is it virtual? Is it in person? So on and so forth. And what do you already have right now? So today, that you can use to get access to healing. So I have this notebook, right? I got a notebook and I got a pen. Like I can start writing some thoughts down. Or I'm gonna book an appointment. I've been wanting to book an appointment with a therapist and I just, you know, haven't made time for it. So that's something that you can do right now. And then what are things that you maybe need in the future to start accessing some of the healing practices that you wanna have access to? Okay, so let's debrief really quick. We talked about a lot of things, and I know we're running out of time, so I'm trying to rush through this. So I want you to honor the feelings, thoughts, memories, and ideas that came up in this webinar. Write them down, draw them out, sit with them, make a to-do list if that's what you're about. Give them space in whatever way is meaningful to you. And then we're going to take a couple deep breaths. And as you're thinking through those last thoughts, really congratulate yourself for being here. This in itself is something you can do this week, right? Just thinking through these things. Thank your body, thank your mind, thank your space that you're in for allowing you to have this little hour. And share out any last minute thoughts that are coming to you in the chat box if you want. Okay, so for the last few minutes, let's do some questions. So if you want to get in contact with M or me, you have our email here. If you want to stay informed about all the things that Freefrom is doing, you can follow us on Facebook, you can follow us on Twitter, you can follow us on LinkedIn, on Instagram. You can also sign up for our newsletter by going to our website, which is www.freefrom.org. If you scroll all the way to the bottom, I think there's a little place right there where you can type in your name and your email. If you can't find it, let us know and we'll sign you up for our newsletters. But any questions? Roxy, do we have any questions?
I am currently checking it on this now. Yes, we have one question. Okay. And I'll just read it, and it's from an anonymous attendee. Thank you, whoever sent in this question. When I think of who I want to be a part of my healing journey, I think of my spouse who is not a GBV trauma survivor, but is someone who also has lots of pain and shame around money. We want to engage together about our money. So I wonder about doing this exercise with them. Have you seen these activities work for people who have shame about money, but are not GBV survivors?
100%. And I should have mentioned that. So these activities actually come from the financial coaching and financial counseling space. We just kind of shifted them a little to make them more specific to the survivor experience. But you can absolutely use these activities with anybody who has shame or trauma around finances. And I think something that is interesting in a stat that I should have shared is that even though 1 in 4 people will experience gender-based violence in their lifetime, when it comes to economic abuse or economic trauma, the chances are a little higher. It's about 1 in 2 of all people will experience economic trauma or abuse, right? And a lot of people don't see that as gender-based violence. It could happen, you know, like I said, like government to a person, or, you know, law entity to a person. So you're absolutely right. There's people out there who are not necessarily survivors who have trauma, and this can be really useful, but always with their permission, always with their consent, always at their timeline. So I love that you're thinking about that, and I hope that it goes well. I don't know, Em, if you have anything else to say.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think that's wonderful, you know, that you two are able to go on this journey together. And like Tannia mentioned, these are activities that anyone can take part in. And there's a lot of folks that have actually experienced economic abuse, but they didn't have the language for it. So it can be useful for really anyone.
Thank you. Thank you. We have another question. How can one go about becoming an advocate for those who are impacted by financial abuse? And how and where do you find financial therapy?
Yeah, so becoming an advocate, I guess it really depends in what context. So there's many different ways to become an advocate per se, whether it is you want to get engaged in more policy work. We have an amazing map and scorecard on our website that allows you to see, you know, what is happening in your state around like laws and policy to support folks who've been subjected to economic abuse or financial abuse. So I definitely encourage you to check that out if you want to get more involved in that space. If you are maybe working with survivor populations, we have trainings and monthly free trainings, and then a 1-year partnership training relationship that we can take on with agencies where we train service providers or case managers or advocates or whatever, specifically on the financial components so that they can start incorporating into the work that they're doing. So that's another option. And then Em, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about peer-to-peer.
Yeah, so I know we're a little bit short on time, so I will say you can definitely contact me and I can give you more information about our peer-to-peer groups. But what our peer-to-peer groups are is a way for survivors to come together to work towards financial freedom and healing in a space that's dedicated to survivors of intimate partner violence, honestly, any violence. And so I can give you a lot more information, but I don't want to take time away from the questions that are coming in. So you can contact me at my email address.
Yeah. And I just wanted to briefly talk about financial therapy. That one is a little harder to find, but if you can't, like, you could just do a Google search like financial therapists in my city or my zip code. If there aren't any, maybe look at like financial coaches. They're a little bit different than financial therapists, but a financial coach can still be really supportive to you. So just like look for different words. There are a lot of nonprofits who do this work for free in the community, whether it's financial coaching, financial counseling, financial therapy. Those three are really good things to Google in your area, or talking to your therapist. Maybe your therapist has some experience if you're currently working with one of them on this topic, or can give you some books or references to read.
I would also add the organization or nonprofit Operation Hope. I'll drop the link in the chat. We use them at our summit that we had in 2019 to provide financial coaching, and they provide free financial wellness coaching. So I'll go ahead and drop that. And also I saw a question that asked about our safety fund. And so the $250 that Tannia had mentioned. So right now we don't have an open safety fund, but what I'm going to do is drop a link to the wait list that we have. So it's best to get on the wait list. So once we do have it open once again and we have funding for that, then we will go to folks on the wait list and give them information about applying. But it's $250, no strings attached grants that are available to survivors. The only thing you have to do is just identify as a survivor. So I'll drop that link right now.
And we are opening one soon. So definitely stay connected on social media or through our newsletters to get information about when we're opening that.
Thank you so much, Tannia and Em. I really appreciate all of the resources and information you both shared about financial wellness, healing, and economic security. We are right now at 2:00. However, I would like for everyone to know that all resources that were mentioned in the webinar or dropped in the chat You will receive a follow-up email from Zoom with the resources, the links, as well as an invitation to the Survivor Leadership listserv from the Human Trafficking Legal Center. You'll also receive a link to today's survey, as well as a link to Survivor Alliance if you would like to learn more about our co-sponsor. Without further ado, there were so many more questions. I also would like to let everyone know, if you did not have an opportunity to jot down the information to follow up directly with Em or Tanya, that would also be in the follow-up email. Again, I would like to thank everyone for coming and coming to our webinar today, and I really appreciate the information shared. Thank you so much, everyone, and we will see you at the next Survivor Leadership webinar.
Thanks,
you.
everyone. Bye.
Bye.